Welcome to the Art of the Drink video podcast. My name is Anthony Caparelli. Most of you know by now that one of my favorite spirits to work with is bourbon, and far and away my favorite bourbon is Maker's Mark. I recently had the opportunity to visit the Maker's Mark distillery in Loretto, Kentucky. I was able to tour the facility and even talk to distillery president Bill Samuels Jr. I found him hand-signing a bunch of Maker's Mark labels for distillery visitors. I started off by asking him how the Maker's Mark brand got started.
Dad got this brilliant idea. He had no idea how to execute it, but got the idea that, gee whiz, I wonder what would happen if we could take the bitterness out of bourbon. And after Mom baked 300 or 400 loaves of bread, they kind of all decided that maybe what he needed to do was to get rid of the rye, which was the flavor grain that traditionally rode with corn, and replace that with red winter wheat from the area. And so he went out, had enough confidence or enough craziness, bought this little distillery, 200 acres, pretty much run down, $36,000.
Really? What year was this?
This was 1953, and made the first batch in February of 1954. If you were looking for a beginning place of the modern era of bourbon, that would probably be it.
1954.
Yeah, somebody had to go first.
So even though the family had been making bourbon since the 1700s, he essentially started from scratch.
Absolutely started from scratch.
Now you said that he started out by baking bread. I know a lot of our viewers, that may be a non sequitur for them.
What you do is when you think about bourbon and start backing it down,
okay.
You make beer before you make bourbon.
Okay.
And before you make beer, you have to cook the mash. And right at that level, the similarities between baking bread and cooking mash are essentially the same thing. If you get these taste characteristics in the mash, they will likely transfer to the bourbon in a general sense.
Even through the distillation process and the aging and all that?
Yeah, through fermentation and through distillation. General, just directional.
Okay, so kill the bitterness, keep the bourbon character is what he wanted to do.
So he wanted to get rid of the one characteristic, leave the rest of it there, and see what would happen. And what would happen is Maker's Mark, and the response was a little slow, but was a lot slow. But over the 40 years, we've been fortunate enough to create an American icon brand out of that one little simple idea.
You have tours here, right? The distillery is open.
We have a lot of tours. We are in we're in direct contact with many of our customers, and they come to Mecca. This place is a wonderful little Victorian village from the 19th century, and we immediately started working on preserving what little money we had and getting certification from the government so it could be protected. It was the first beverage facility in the country to be designated national landmark, and we've tried to honor that. We spent a lot of resources maintaining it.
And I understand you have a certificate from Guinness on the wall. What's that about?
It ended up being certified as the oldest distillery site in America that's still used as an operating distillery.
I want to take a minute now and talk a little bit about the Maker's Mark bottle and the famous wax dip. Tell me about that.
Well, this was out of hunger. Dad had started down here in '54, and he was so focused on the craft. After 6 years, Mom got very nervous that nothing was going to happen unless she took the initiative. She assigned herself the marketing director, and she designed the bottle and came up with the name. And
Maker's Mark name. What is the story behind the name?
Well, she was one of she may have been America's foremost authority on English pewter from the 18th century. If they were sufficiently proud of that particular work, they put their mark.
So you would know that piece came from that craftsman.
And it's the hallmark in silver. The idea of the wax she liked. She was a chemist.
Really?
And she had a small collection of 19th century cognac bottles, and they're all sealed in wax. And she, in her early days, she had been a calligrapher. That was one of her jobs when she was in college. So she also invented the Maker's Mark type style, her little hand lettering.
On the bottle,
and
the labels to this day.
It's become an international type style. So she put all that together and presented it, and Dad thought it was okay. He didn't have much choice because I was sitting there at dinner when it was presented. And we, at that moment, my sisters and I knew who wore the pants in the family.
Tell me about the little emblem on the bottle that everyone's familiar with.
After Jim Beam died, we moved off Whiskey Row and moved into the country. And the name of our little farm was Star Hill Farm. So the mark originally was just the star and the circle. And so she thought she would take that and put S, Samuels, fourth generation, representing Dad's generational lineage to owning and operating distilleries. Of course, she got that part wrong, but he didn't say anything. Yeah, it was actually backwards. He was the sixth.
Oh, really?
But by the time it got to that part of the discussion, he was already beat up so bad he just let it slide.
I think that was probably wise.
And we wouldn't change it for anything because it's Mom's only mistake.
The wax dip, what's the story there?
Well, the story was, and that's what bothered Dad the most about the whole thing. He said, how are we going to do this commercially? How do we get it on, and then how do people get it off? So there wasn't any, unless you use pocket knife or something, and that sounded like a lot of lawsuits.
Yeah, I think so.
He was a mechanical engineer, and he invented the piece of a... Are you a very good one?
That's my degree. I'm a terrible mechanical engineer. That's why I do bartending.
That's why you bartend. Well, he was an okay bartender too.
There you go. We have a lot in common.
But he actually invented the little piece of equipment that put the tear tab on that allowed people to get it off.
Now, is it true that I may be able to get to dip a bottle?
If you put all your safety equipment on,
oh, absolutely.
I mean, we've got 19 ocean inspectors down here, and they really watch.
I'll be careful.
Oh, good.
I was going to go somewhere else, but I'm going to go off on a tangent here. Tell me what you do like. What do you like about this business? What really gets you?
I think the thing I like the best is the respect for what we do. I really like the idea of connecting personally with our customers, especially when they hold our hand up and say, hey, me too.
Today, that seems to be even your philosophy with things like the ambassador program. I've been ambassador for about 5 years now, and I feel like, even though this is the first time we've met face to face, I feel like I know you because I get emails from you personally on a regular basis through that program.
You don't mind all the boring stuff on my ancestors and all that I sent?
One of the things that we try to do here at Art of the Drink, as I'm sure the viewers will attest to, hopefully, is fill in some of the gaps with some of the history, some of the context, because these products have played such an integral role in the development of the society, the government, the culture, us as a people, and people don't really have an appreciation for that, I think, to the level that they should. And I look forward to that, and I thank you for that. I hope you continue to do it. Okay, so let's just wrap this up. I want you to kind of put you on the spot here, if that's okay, and ask you to just tell me a story, one of your favorite stories over the years about the industry and being involved with it.
Having been the only child, or the last child, to grow up on Whiskey Row in Bardstown, which was the cradle of bourbon, and to have some of the legends in the industry in their retiring years as neighbors. Henry McKenna, I.W. Harper Bernheim had a summer house. Jim Beam was our neighbor and was my godfather. The man that owned Early Times. Yeah.
Unbelievable, this area.
Yeah, it is. And of course, these guys were all friends. When Dad was going through the Maker's Mark experiment, I mean, they all pitched in and helped. They lent us yeast. They gave us all kinds of advice and counsel. And I mean, it was a great experience for somebody growing up and watching how business could be done, how people could help each other even though they competed.
I know a lot of liquors have a history, spirits in general, of being reflective of the areas that they came out of, but a lot of those spirits date so far back that you almost don't get a sense of that. And it seems like with bourbon, it's all still within living memory, that whole sense of bourbon coming from the people that create it.
The part that means the most to me is the people in the business. My father's an icon. Jim Beam was an icon.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Motlows of Jack Daniels were, I mean, they were real people. And I spent a lot of time with them. Great, great people, and they all loved each other.
Well, Bill, I want to thank you so much, both for your product and for your time today. Bill Samuels, Jr., President of Maker's Mark. Thanks again, Bill.
Thank you, pal.
For more information on the art of making drinks, be sure to visit us on the web at artofthedrink.com.
That's just too goofy. Anthony did good. Anthony did better than I did.
Get that on tape.
Good. All right.
Good. Cut.